Welcome to this session. My name is Isaac Curlow, and we are now at the Surviving Natural Hazards Through Gameplay session, where we will be talking about the Earth Girl Volcano game. I am now going to share my screen. All right. So as I said before, welcome to session number 4. I am here in LA, in California, where it's 9 a.m. And my colleagues, Gabriela Pedreros, is in Chile, where it's 2 p.m. And Elena Albert is in Madrid, where it's 5 or 6. All right. We are recording this session, just for your information. I am a filmmaker and a game designer. I direct and produce movies and games about natural hazards and people. I used to be principal investigator and executive creative director at the Earth Observatory of Singapore for about a decade, and I just moved to LA just before the pandemic started. I now work here doing pretty much the same thing, movies and games. All right, so Earth Girl Volcano is a casual strategy game that we developed maybe we started 4 years ago. And the goal is to provide players with practical knowledge to know what to do during a volcanic eruption. And the goal of this session is to give you a general idea of the game and chat with you, answer whatever questions you might have. The game is free. You can download it from the web, and you can try it. The videos that we're going to show are also online. If you pretty much Google Earth Girl Volcano, you get a lot of different hits. All right. So I assume that most of you are familiar with volcanic hazards, but if you're not, volcanic hazards are pretty common. They happen in almost 100 countries throughout the world. And an estimated 800 million people live within 100 kilometers of active volcanoes. The thing about volcanic hazards, which makes them unique, is that they're very complex. They have many variables and permutations, and they're not so easy to predict with full certainty. And of course, being prepared and knowing what to do during an episode of volcanic activity can have a huge influence on the outcome and the welfare of the community. Volcanic hazards are multimodal hazards. Pyroclastic flows, for example, are highly destructive and sudden events. We also have mud flows, which are delayed events of destruction. As you probably know, lava is the least of the hazards, but of course it's also a hazard that we have to be prepared against. And when we were designing the game, we realized that an effective game of preparedness would have to be simple, flexible, and easy to understand in different cultural contexts. So I'm now going to show you a 6-minute demo of the game with voiceover. I think there's a problem. I'm sorry. Let me try it again.
Hello, and welcome to a quick demo of the new Earth Girl Volcano game. This exciting new game from the Earth Observatory of Singapore shows you how to prepare for a volcanic event and how to help the community respond during an emergency evacuation. We designed the game after talking to dozens of people who live near volcanoes around the world. And we packed the good advice of emergency experts, volcano scientists, and people who have survived volcanic disasters. The main goal of Earth Girl Volcano is to save as many villagers as possible. Okay, let's get started. We chose the beginner level of difficulty so we can get a generous budget and face low danger. Here at the map, you can see different locations around the volcanoes. We have villages, cities, and industrial areas. Some of them are closer to the volcano than others. So let's choose Pyro City. You are now at the market. Here, you can tap on any villager to hear about their opinion and experiences. What they tell you may be useful in choosing the right tools and knowing what to do. And you can pre-select their suggested tools by dragging them into your tools. Click on the Explore green arrow. Here, you see the toolbox, where you can choose additional tools and put together a plan of action. You can choose up to 8 tools in total. But first, let's explore Pyro City. Few people are outside because most are working, at school, or at home. If we scroll to the left, you see the side of the town that is closest to the volcano. See that empty green area? People from nearby villages will later come in here seeking shelter. And the blue river looks really pretty, but it blocks the evacuation. Let's scroll to the right. There are many paved roads, and this makes evacuation faster than on just the dust roads. See that building with a star? That is the community center. And this is where we can later use the powerful education and early warning tools. The white sign on the right points to safety. Okay, let's get a few basic tools. You can later explore the other tools on your own. The awareness tool provides 4 levels of volcanic hazard knowledge. The escape truck helps transport people faster, which is useful for populations of hundreds of people. The paramedics can rescue and heal villagers who are injured during a volcanic disaster. The bridge helps people to evacuate when rivers block the escape routes. And Earth Girl, the leader, saves stubborn people and cattle. Early warning is an expensive but powerful tool to monitor volcanic activity. It can help you decide the best time to evacuate depending on the type and intensity of the volcanic hazard. Last but not least, let's get the dust mask to protect villagers from volcanic ash. All right, we now have 7 tools. Let's start and go play. Look at the timer in the lower right corner. We have about 4 minutes to do this. We can press pause at any time and continue. Education is an affordable tool. Drag the education tool into the community center and see the color circles around people's head change from red to orange to yellow to green. Ideally, you want everyone green because this color means that they know what to do and will make good decisions. Now, let's build a couple of bridges, 2 on the left and 2 on the right. Without these bridges, people will be trapped. Early warning is an expensive tool, but it's helpful because it displays the alert level. It's green right now, and that means no volcanic activity yet. This tool also indicates the red danger zone, the most vulnerable area in this town, the one closest to the volcano. Let's place some escape trucks in the main escape road right next to a bridge or a high-rise building. Place a few leaders to the left of the buildings and the houses so that they will get everyone to come outside and evacuate. Volcanic ash is falling and this debilitates the villagers. Quick, let's apply a few dust masks to protect their health. All right, there's about 3 minutes left and the alert level is changing. Yellow means trouble. Let's evacuate, a full evacuation. Only the green circle people will follow our directions. There are too many things happening at the same time. Oh no! Look how many people from nearby towns are coming in. The good news is that our budget is still okay and we still have time. But we need to move fast. Get more trucks so people can evacuate faster and get some paramedics to help those who need medical assistance. The alert level is now red. Extreme danger is imminent. Anything we do now has to speed up a safe evacuation. Time is up. Great job! We managed to evacuate most of the residents before the massive hazard arrived. Thanks to you, an entire community was saved.
All right. I'm gonna share my PowerPoint again. All right, so as you can see, the game is about complexity. We present very complex events in a show and tell manner. The idea is that kids can play this game and learn from it. The game design has two very important features. First of all, we foster exploration, but we also foster commitment to choices at some point. What do I mean by that? Before the eruption, we foster exploration, and that is represented by the arrows going in multiple directions. You can explore the map, the market, the toolbox, go back and forth until you feel that you have learned enough knowledge to deal with the situation. But once you start the simulation, you cannot go back, which is pretty much what happens in reality. Once the eruption starts, whatever choices you make, you can't change because everything happens very rapidly, and so your skill is really tested without any way to go back. Why do we have the sections in the game that we have? Well, the market is basically, the concept behind the market is to emphasize that this game is about community. A single person cannot defeat a volcanic eruption. A single person cannot deal with everything. This is a community project where everybody's actions matter. The map is a way to give you context and to facilitate navigation through the game also, but more than anything, it's to give you a sense of spatial context and let you know where you are and what things are around you, which also matter in an evacuation. The toolbox, this is a part of the game that took the most work because we had to create tools that basically foster proactive preparedness. These are tools that help you survive, but you need to know what to do with them and when to use them and how to combine them. When you're exploring the game before the simulation starts, the tools allow you to explore what-if scenarios. And of course, you see there is, each tool costs money, so there's that issue. And hazards, we try to incorporate as many hazards as possible, and each one of them has very specific behaviors. All right, so now I would like to introduce my colleague Gabriela Pedreros, who is a Chilean geologist from the University of Chile. She currently works at the Cernagiomín Southern Andes Volcanological Observatory, where she is part of the real-time monitoring team of active volcanoes in Chile. And she's focused on surface variations, ash analysis, and remote sensing. Right now, she's actually at Nevado de Chillán, which is one of the most awesome volcanoes in Chile. All right, so Gabriela.
Thank you, Isaac. Hello, everyone. I'm Gabriela Pedreros, and I'll tell you a few things from a volcanic monitoring point of view. for example, we surveillance 45 active volcanoes of our country. It is very interesting because all of them have different context. In the northern part, there is a huge desert with isolated towns and eruption distanced in time, while in the south, eruptions are more frequent, towns that are closer, very touristic, and with a large population. This means that we have many, many types of possible crisis scenarios. And it is the realities of most of the countries with active volcanoes. A volcanic eruption, can, you can imagine that, can be very catastrophic. For this reason, in many countries, they have chosen to develop an early warning system that allows people to evacuate and be safe. This is in the real life. In an early warning system, there are three fundamental elements: the volcanic monitoring carried out by specialized scientists, the civil protection, and of course, the people, diverse people. So, the volcanic monitoring keeps people and civil protection. Next, please. Sorry. Volcanic monitoring in the left part of your screen keeps people and civil protection informed about the alert level of the volcano constantly in real time. It explains the type of activity the volcano has right now and how dangerous it is, but it doesn't evacuate people directly. This means that people has a lot of information, but this doesn't implies an action to them. Next. So, in this way, you have so many scenarios before an evacuation that many times people start to get confused. They start to speculate or maybe to normalize the activity, or they don't understand the information in a scientific language. It is very difficult to communicate clearly for everyone. Next. So only in some scenarios that implies a greater danger, the civil protection system will generate the alert and evacuation deployment. If people are not clear about what to do, they hinder the process and put their lives at risk because you have a large process before that, or maybe just a very few time space before an evacuation. Next. So what can we do about this? Or the solution, I think. Next, please, Isaac. Yeah, the solution is keep in touch, be in permanent contact to share knowledge and explain the complex variables that make up volcanic risk management. For these reasons, next, many scientists strive to be in direct contact with communities and make sure that they understand the message in a friendly way and the volcanic context in which they live. These pictures are examples of different activities that we always do, um, like evacuation simulations, where all the civil protection goes to a specific town to very near of a volcano. Divulgation fairs, also visits to the observatory, among other things. This is all the time trying to do our best work, saying the community and listening how they how they lives their lives very close to a volcano. Next. But unfortunately, this involves very hard work to the scientific team. only a limited number of people are reached. And they are specific activities. It is not permanent. There is not always a common language between us. And we really need build a common and friendly knowledge or experience level in a way that people can decant the concepts and have fun. This is the reason why Earth Girl Volcano is a perfect alternative. We have tried this game with different peoples and different towns, and it has a very good result because kids uh, think about a volcano crisis like something fun and something in what you can improve and be has a better action when this happened. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriela. Um, remember to keep track of all these very interesting points that Gabriela made and that you saw in the demo earlier, because we'll have a Q&A segment in a few minutes. All right, I would like to introduce now Dr. Elena Albert. She obtained her PhD at the University of Barcelona in Spain, where she currently also holds a tenure-track position as a lecturer professor. She was a research fellow at the Earth Observatory of Singapore, and later a volcanologist at the Central Geophysical Observatory of Spain. Her research aims to understand the magmatic systems and the timescales of the processes occurring at depths and during magma transport towards the surface. Dr. Albert is a petrologist, geochemist, volcanologist, and she uses multidisciplinary approaches that relate all these different items with volcano monitoring data. And she will talk a little bit about the scientific foundations behind the game. Elena?
Thank you, Isaac. Hello, everyone. So yes, as you just said, I will give you this brief scientific point of view introduction about the game. So let's start saying that to predict eruptions, volcanologists must interpret geochemical and geophysical precursors, as for example, as you might see in the image, the seismicity, or the inflation and deflation of the ground in the surrounding areas of the volcano, the gas emissions, and many other geophysical and geochemical data. But at this point, the question is, once we have collected all this information, how do we interpret these precursors to mitigate the hazards? And on the next slide, please. So to do that, we need a better understanding of the magmatic processes that take place at depth, and a better understanding of how dike propagation occurs, for example, and many other topics that I won't explain here now. And all this can be achieved by studying previous and ongoing eruptions by performing different kinds of studies. For example, if you look to the picture on the right, you can see an outcrop in which few different volcanic deposits have been identified. And what we do is sampling all these layers, and from here we reconstruct past eruptions based on factors as, for example, the granulometry, which refers to the size of these deposits, or petrological studies under the microscope, and many different analytical instruments. And next. So by compiling all the information about previous eruptions, we can establish the past behavior of the volcano, and hence we can predict, or at least try to predict, its future activity. For example, we can classify the eruptions based on their explosivity. And as you may know, these different types of eruptions pose very different hazards. For example, a Hawaiian eruption that you have on the left with very, very little explosivity is characterized by extensive lava flows, while the volcanic plume of a Plinian eruption that you have on the right can have effects on the climate. I'm sure you have heard about the Tambora eruption in Indonesia in 1815 and the year without summer in 1816. And the reason is that the volcanic plume reaches the stratosphere and remains sustained as an umbrella. And this blocks the sun for a very long time. At this point, I won't show you, but I invite you to take a look at the connection between these huge volcanic eruptions and the contemporary art and literature. For example, the watercolor paintings of Turner, I'm sure you know, that he painted after the Tambora eruption. And you might see the effect, how people were seeing this year without the summer. Next. So now let me briefly show you which are the hazards posed by volcanoes and also the hazards related to eruptions. So direct hazards are the products of the eruption, as for example, the lava flows that you can see in the image in red, or the pyroclastic flows that you have there on the right, like a big cloud going down on the slope, or the volcanic ash. And then we also have the hazard associated to the eruption, as can be a landslide that might occur on the flank of the volcano, an earthquake, or even a tsunami. Next. Lava flows are rarely a threat to human life as they move slowly enough to move away. However, they can cause several damages on man-made structures and vegetation, as you can see in the upper image. Pyroclastic flows instead travel at a really high speed and destroy everything in their wake. Regarding the ash, if large quantities fall on a roof, it may collapse. And also it's very important that ash damages the engines of cars and airplanes. Next. Another threat are the volcanic gases, which can be poisonous and cause respiratory illness. And as you know, CO2 is heavier than air, and it can be easily accumulated in depressed areas, as a valley, for example, asphyxiating every living thing in its path. Here you can have a very explicit image about it. Next. So here you can see another three important threats associated to eruptions as landslides that are generated because of the movement of unstable slopes, lateral blasts that can destroy structures and kill all living things by abrasion, impact, burial, and heat within just a few minutes, and lahars, also known as volcanic mud flows, that are a mixture of water and volcanic debris, typically triggered in areas with intense rainfall or snow. Next. And last but not least, earthquakes that are generated by the fracturing of the underground rocks during magma migration. And as everybody knows, might damage buildings and also trigger other threats, as for example, landslides. And when an eruption happens in the sea or along the coast, a tsunami might be triggered. For example, when Krakatoa erupted in 1883, generated a tsunami that killed above 36,000 people in coastal villages of the nearby islands. This was the original profile of Krakatoa before the eruption, as you can see, like with the dashed line in white. And after the eruption, Krakatoa was completely gone and was replaced by a caldera of 300 meters deep. And you can see in more gray and pointed by a red arrow, the Anak Krakatau, which means literally means child of Krakatau, and this is the current topography we have. And this volcano erupted in 2018. You might have heard about it, and it triggered another tsunami that killed more than 400 people, and further 7,000 people were injured, and nearly 50,000 were displaced from their homes. And next. So now that you have an idea of how our desks and laptops look like, full of plots, images, tables, plenty of data, I don't want to bother you with more. I'm sure you can imagine how challenging is it to condense all these complexities and technicalities into a fun game in which you still have to provide the main information, but in a completely different way. And I think after playing the game, an audience that is vaguely aware of volcanic disasters will have basic and useful information in the case of an emergency. For example, they will be aware of how important it is to have basic knowledge about the area in which they are living, or the importance of knowing the evacuation plans and following the instructions, as Isaac was showing on the game trial, right? And generally other basic things like that. So I'm sure Isaac can tell you now more in detail all the steps in this process of understanding between scientists and artists, which is not always smooth for both parts, but it is certainly a pleasure, and especially when you see that the game is useful and therefore the main goal is accomplished at this point. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Elena, for that interesting overview. All right, so yeah, as Elena mentioned, I would like to talk a little bit about the issue of representing hazards in a realistic way, so that the players of the game believe the situation. All right, so the game essentially seeks to show how things happen during a volcanic event and the volcanic evacuation. And this issue was extremely important to everybody involved in the development of the game, both the scientists who were part of the team, the students who were helping with a variety of issues, and the professional animators, artists, game designers, programmers who wanted to create an engaging product. So turns out that a lot of the realism is based actually on the accurate characterization of the volcanic hazards, but it also has to do with story, you know. And for us, it was a very interesting challenge. How do you dramatize in storytelling based on volcanic hazards? How do you dramatize the situations created by different volcanic hazards? So let me show you what I mean. For example, the game can have terrible moments of devastation. For example, if you play a level that has multiple hazards and you basically don't do what's necessary or don't do anything or choose the wrong tools or do it too late, your village will get trashed and your community will get destroyed. So for us, it was a very big challenge. How do we represent this terrible destruction and death without scaring the players, especially because this is a game that's suitable for children, 8, 10 years old. So that was we spent a huge amount of time fine-tuning how to represent devastation. I don't have enough time to tell you all the things that we did or we didn't do, but basically we don't really show anything gory. We don't show death on screen, but we do show casualties and we do show progressive destruction. Interestingly enough, a lot of the realism of the game comes from how we choose to represent the community. And you know, these are studies that we did for different characters in the game. This is actually for the what we call the African edition of the game, where we redrew a lot of the characters from scratch. And even though this is a cartoony style, this is very, very cartoony, like an animated, you know, TV series style of drawing, because we are characterizing them in accurate ways in terms of their expressions, the way they wear their hair or their dresses, people relate to that and people believe that these are real people. We put a lot of emphasis on facial expressions and body language of the different characters in the game. And this has to do with acting. You know, actors use facial expressions, actors use body language, and not only actors, but real people. We all use our faces and our bodies and our gestures to communicate what we feel and what we think. And there's a lot of different emotions that take place during a volcanic eruption. Now, this is a very interesting point about how do we represent people doing things that they shouldn't do. So, for example, when the player gives dust masks to the population so that they're not debilitated by the volcanic ashfall, a few of the villagers will throw the mask away. And why did we do this? Because in reality, as you know, especially now during the pandemic, a lot of people don't follow instructions. A lot of people don't realize that some of the limitations or some of the orders that they get from emergency evacuation managers, for example, or community leaders or adults have to do with safety. And so this was an issue, as Elena mentioned before, that created a lot of discussions between scientists and game designers, because game designers wanted to represent unproductive behaviors. And at first, that was an alien concept to scientists who were more inclined to representing things the way they should be. But we felt that would not create a realistic representation of the hazard. Yeah, and this is just to emphasize what I just said. You know, some individuals don't always follow directions. And this is, for example, a moment in the game where there's very little time left. As you can see, there's 7 seconds for the evacuation to finish. The village has been overrun by lava and fire, but these two people are still looking around, thinking what to do. And again, I want to explain right now how we coded what we call the stupid behavior of people in the game, but that is a major feature of the game to bring realism and believability. Along the same lines, individuals in reality sometimes react late, not just because they're doing it on purpose, but for any number of reasons. They must also be helped. So the game allows you to deal with both the people who react immediately and who know what to do and who are very proactive, but also with the people who fall behind. Sometimes it's the elderly. Sometimes, you know, we have a baby character in the game. This baby is a very charming character, and you know, he can be as smart as anybody else, but he walks. It happens to be a boy. We only have a baby boy. He happens to walk very slowly, so he needs special help. Unexpected events happen, and this is a major issue with natural hazards, and particularly with volcanic hazards. One of the wonderful things about doing this type of project for somebody like myself, who is not a volcanologist, was to be in the field and listen to the issues that evacuation managers have to deal with, or community leaders have to deal with. And one of the things that struck me at the beginning as very interesting and important was that, you know, when you're evacuating your village, it's not just the villagers in your community, it's other people who live nearby who might need your help, and you still need to help them. And they are going to impact your ability to evacuate your own people. So you need to take all these things into account in the game, and the game is built to deal with that level of complexity. And of course, if you do everything the way you should, the way a proper evacuation can be run, you can have a happy ending where the majority or everybody in your community is saved. And here, if you entered the session earlier and you saw the game demo, you will see that most of the villagers have the green circle around their head, which means they know what to do. So here we have a community that's mostly following directions, being very proactive, evacuating at the right time. So even though there's a very narrow path of escape, because they still have a lot of time left before the hazard arrives to the village, they will be okay, or they can be okay. All right, so this wraps up the formal presentation. And before we move on to the Q&A, I just want to say that we are really grateful to every single person who participated in the development and production of this game, particularly our scientist partners, the students from both Nanyang Polytechnic and Nanyang Technological University who provided help with the drawing, the production of the game, or the writing of the scenarios. And the game is available online. You can get it from any number of places, including Google Play and the App Store, and also this URL here for your computer. And we also, I want to mention that Gabriela, Elena, and myself, we recently published a research paper in the Geosciences Communication Journal of the European Geosciences Union, where we go over a lot of the issues that were part of developing this game. This is a free paper that you can download freely. All right, so we are now in the Q&A section of the presentation. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. And if anybody has any questions, we would love to hear it and try to provide an answer. So anybody who's ready to ask a question, please just speak and we'll try to answer. All right, any questions about the, the production design of the game, about the scientific foundations of the game, about the realities of evacuating and working with communities? We'll be happy to hear your questions.
Hi, Isaac.
Hi.
Good evening. My name is Ilse de Vent. I'm from the Netherlands. I find your game is very, very charming. It must have been a tremendous effort to make it look and work like this. I was wondering, can you tell us a bit about the experiences of I don't know, did you practice this with communities or school classes? How do they react on your game?
Yeah, thank you for your question. That's a really good question. I would say about a third of the development and production of the game effort was testing the game. I mean, we started testing the game. We build prototypes. The way you design and produce a game is by building a prototype. And we started testing the prototypes from stage one. As soon as we had anything that didn't crash, basically, and that felt like it was an experience, we took it to different people. We took it, of course, to the team members. We had a program where we had interns in high school, middle school, and university test the game. We also took it to primary schools, to teachers, kids in different countries, Southeast Asia, the Americas. So yeah, that was a very important part of the process. And that really helped us. A lot of things that we thought were clear turned out were not clear. A lot of things that we thought were boring turned out people really like them, and we enhanced them, we expanded them. Thank you. Any other questions for Gabriela or Elena?
There's a question on the chat. Not sure you have seen it.
Oh, no, I haven't.
You can answer to that as well.
Do we have any experience of adults playing the game and how well it works for learning among adults? Yeah, we've had adults play the game. Now, interestingly, the game is more popular with kids. I think this is maybe a generational issue. Kids are more interested in playing games than adults. Um, but we've had particularly evacuation managers from throughout, I can say, Southeast Asia. They have played the game and they have made very positive comments about the game because they feel it's a tool for them. It's a tool that they can bring to government officials and international funders to show them how an evacuation takes place. So of course, an evacuation manager knows all these things, but they find the game a good summary to show somebody who's not familiar with the game, not only the communities, but also people involved in funding and helping them do their job. So that's been very encouraging.
Can I
Thank you for the
agree
question.
something about that?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. In my experience, when we try to play the game with different persons, adults react like, how can you show people dying? You can't do that. Listen, please the baby, and they spend all the money trying to do that. But kids try to do better again and do better again, and they don't think about how terrific is. They want to understand what is happening and save more lives. But adults that have a previous idea that a volcanic eruption can be so catastrophic, they try to um, do that more in an easily way, but nobody's happening, everything is okay. So it's like a different point of view, but it's interesting that because that shows you that kids can has maybe like an open mind. So you should pick up kids the video game and make this in a positive way. That is my experience.
I think there's another question for you, Gabriela. How do you feel the game works with communities in comparison to other outreach tools
No me deja
used
entrar
in
ese
Chile?
tipo.
It's different because when you are in front of another person, you can explain in a very friendly way things, but it has to be one and one. And I think that Earth Girl Volcano has a different thing that is not so evident. So you can learn about something and teach about something without say the specific word. So it's very but I think that is a very good experience because, for example, in this year we have an online activity with Earth Girl Volcano, so we did the same, how do you say, like a partida, Isaac?
How do you say what?
We play the game together and we make the decisions together in an online meeting. So I think that is more flexible in that way, and it's free also, and so you can take like a bigger audience also. But I think that is different, and it has this learning with playing something that I think that's very difficult to have in another kind of outreach tools.
Any other questions? We still have a couple of minutes. Yeah, somebody made a comment about it would be great if we had a COVID game like this, and yeah, I agree. We are we have thought about that. Definitely. Anything else you would like to add, Elena or Gabriela?
Just a question about the adults and kids remind me a conversation we had about the, as Gabriela said, the different way we, both groups, the perception we have. I remember at the end of the game, when you finish playing, the game tells you the statistics, a bit like how many people died and things like this, right? And then few little casualties, like it's a happy face, right? Because it's a game. So you have a happy face saying, yeah, just 20 people die, right? So for adults, this is kind of shocking. But for kids, it's great, right? It's like, oh, the first time I played, 100 people died. Now only 20. I'm gonna play again. And this reminds me this conversation we had. I think it's yeah, it's very different.
That's a great point. Anything else, Gabriela? So going back to your online experience, what can you tell us a little bit about that? Because that was very interesting to me and I haven't had a chance to hear about it.
Yeah, we have like a divulgation fair. So invite different kids of one community next to a specific volcano. So we invite them to download the game before. Everyone's open the game in his own computer, and I teach them how to play. And then we did this to play in groups, and it was so funny because they didn't agree between them about the tools to use. For example, they start to compete between them also. And at the end, we make like a kind of um, competition between them to who saved more people. And everyone was so crazy, like trying, look, I saved everyone's. And I never was sure about how truly was that at the beginning for him, for example, because they was so excited to trying to win. And then I started to ask very interesting questions. For example, can this happen in Tupungatito? That is the name of the volcano. Really, this can happen. I think that this cannot happen in here. And it was interesting because you can compare each city in the game with your own town, and then you start to compare and trying to understand what kind of danger is more probably to happen in my city and what not. It was very cool, and we recorded so then other people can watch the same activity. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Gabriela. So I think we're out of time. I just want to quickly answer this question. What advice do I have for those wishing to pursue the use of games in DRR practice from a design development and implementation angle? Just very quickly, developing an effective game takes a lot of work, and you really need to work with professionals. Sometimes people think that a student or two can make a game in a week. No, that's not really the case. For a game of such complexity, you need an interdisciplinary team, you need a lot of time, a lot of patience, and you need to test it and test it and test it. And I would say it takes no less than a year. It really takes time. All right, well, I would like to thank my colleagues, Gabriela and Elena, for their wonderful presentations and for their collaboration throughout time. I would like to thank all of you for participating. And again, all of our collaborators. I hope you enjoy the conference and have a great day or evening. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, Elena. Thank you, Gabriela. Bye, everybody.